You are lying in bed. It is 3:17 a.m. You are dissecting your latest failure. You know exactly why you failed. You can name the psychological complex. You can trace it back to a specific childhood memory. You can articulate the exact cognitive bias that led you astray. You have the vocabulary. You have the insight. You think this self-awareness is your superpower. It feels like control. It feels like growth. It is not. It is your prison. We live in the era of the hyper-analyzed self. Never before in human history have so many people possessed such a deep understanding of their own psychology. You know your attachment style. You know your triggers. You know your shadow. You have consumed hundreds of hours of philosophy, psychology, and self-improvement. You have the map of your own mind completely drawn out. And yet, nothing has changed. Your relationships still fail the same way. Your anxiety still paralyzes you. Your goals still sit untouched. You are frustrated. You wonder what piece of information you are missing. You search for another book, another podcast, another framework. But here is what nobody tells you. You do not lack information. You are suffering from an overdose of it. The real problem is not that you do not understand your pain. The problem is that you are using your intellect as a shield against it. You have confused knowing the name of a poison with having the antidote. You think that because you can describe your fear in vivid, clinical detail, you have conquered it. Be honest with yourself. Look at your life. The awareness has not set you free. It has simply made you a highly educated hostage. Imagine your mind is a vast, ancient library, an archive. Inside, there are thousands of dusty shelves. For years, you have been meticulously labeling every pain, every trauma, every rejection, and every failure. You put them in glass jars. You write detailed tags for them. This jar is fear of abandonment. This jar is imposter syndrome. This jar is an ego defense mechanism. You spend your days walking up and down these aisles. You dust the jars. You rearrange the shelves. You are an expert on your own suffering. You are the ultimate librarian of your own tragedy. But while you are inside the archive, organizing your pain, the world is happening outside. You are not living. You are just cataloging. Why do we do this? Because the archive feels safe. Analyzing a wound does not hurt as much as cleaning it. To analyze is to observe from a distance. It creates a false sense of elevation. When you sit back and intellectualize your failure, you do not have to feel the sting of it. You become a scientist studying a specimen. But you are not a specimen. You are a living, breathing human being. And human beings cannot think their way out of an emotional deficit. You cannot logic your way through grief. You cannot philosophize your way through heartbreak. The intellect is a powerful tool, but it is a terrible master. When it is used to avoid feeling, it becomes a weapon you turn against yourself. Every time you consume another piece of content about human behavior, you get a rush of dopamine. It feels like you are doing the work. You say to yourself, I am healing, I am growing. But are you? Look closer. True growth requires friction. It requires stepping into the arena and getting blood on your hands. Sitting alone in the dark room, quietly understanding why you are afraid of the arena, is not growth. It is sophisticated cowardice. You have built a fortress not to keep the enemy out, but to keep yourself locked inside. You are using the language of healing to avoid the terrifying vulnerability of living. This is not a modern problem, it is an ancient one. 2,000 years ago, the Stoic philosopher Epictetus watched his own students fall into this exact trap. Epictetus was a man who knew real suffering. He was born a slave. His leg had been crippled by his master. He did not study philosophy for entertainment. He studied it to survive. And as a free man teaching in Rome, he looked at his wealthy, comfortable students with disgust. He saw men walking around the markets, quoting Chrysippus, debating the finer points of logic, someone off their deep understanding of Stoic theory. They sounded brilliant. They had all the terminology. But when tragedy struck, they collapsed. When they were insulted, they raged. When they lost their wealth, they wept. Epictetus did not praise their intellect, he mocked it. He told them that a sheep does not throw up its grass to show the shepherd how much it has eaten. It digests the grass and produces wool. He told them that a carpenter does not come to you and talk about his tools. He shows you the house he built. You have spent years collecting tools. You have the finest psychological terminology. You have the deepest philosophical concepts. But where is the house? What have you built? The truth is, you are using your tools to build higher walls around the archive. You are using self-awareness to justify your paralysis. You say, I cannot take this risk because I have an avoidant attachment style. You say, I cannot start this project because my shadow self is afraid of success. Stop. Read that again. You are using the truth as an excuse to hide. You are turning your diagnosis into a life sentence. And it gets worse, because the longer you stay inside the archive, the heavier the doors become. Every new theory you learn is a brick. Every psychological term you memorize is mortar. You are walling yourself in. You think you are seeking the truth, but you are actually seeking an exemption. You want to find the perfect diagnosis so that you finally have a valid excuse for your inaction. If you can convince yourself that your procrastination is actually a deeply rooted trauma response, you never have to hold yourself accountable. You get to play the victim and the therapist at the same time. It is a brilliant, devastating game. Carl Jung warned us about this. He knew that the intellect is a trickster. Jung encountered brilliant patients who could map their own subconscious perfectly. They could trace their neuroses back to the cradle. They knew every archetype operating in their minds. But they were miserable. They were paralyzed. Jung realized a terrifying truth. You can have absolute psychological insight and still destroy your life. Insight without action is not a cure. It is just a heavier burden to carry. Your ego loves the complexity of your problems. The ego wants to feel special. If your failure is just ordinary fear, that is humiliating. You must face it. But if your failure is the result of a complex, multi-layered Peter Pan syndrome mixed with avoidant dismissive attachment, well, then you are a fascinating tragedy. You are a complex puzzle that requires years of careful study. Stop lying to yourself. You are not a puzzle to be solved. You are a person who needs to move. Look closer at what happens when you feel pain. When you feel a dark, heavy grief or a sudden spike of anxiety, your intellect immediately rushes in to categorize it. You try to put the wild beast in a cage of words. This is my inner child reacting, you tell yourself. This is an amygdala hijack. You do this because feeling raw, unanalyzed pain is terrifying. But pain demands to be felt, not studied. When you intellectualize your sadness, you are holding it at arm's length. You never let it burn through you. You never let it break you down so you can be rebuilt. And because you never let the fire consume you, the smoke never leaves. It stays inside the archive forever. You are domesticating your own soul. You are taking the raw, brutal, beautiful experience of being human and turning it into a sterile spreadsheet. The Stoics offered a ruthless alternative. They demanded a bias toward action. Marcus Aurelius did not sit in his military tent writing endlessly about the psychological origins of his exhaustion. He did not analyze his childhood to figure out why he hated dealing with the treacherous Roman Senate. He simply wrote in his journal, "At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, I have to go to work as a human being." He didn't ask why it was hard. He didn't search for a psychological excuse. He just did the work. The ancient mind understood something we have completely forgotten. Action precedes understanding, not the other way around. You do not think your way into a new way of living. You live your way into a new way of thinking. Look at the physical world. A blacksmith does not read 20 books on the molecular structure of iron before striking the anvil. He picks up the heavy hammer. He feels the blistering heat of the forge. He learns through the friction of reality. You are trying to forge a life in a vacuum. You want absolute guarantees before you step into the arena. You want a perfect psychological map before you take a single step into the unknown. But the map is not the territory. The archive is not the world. And this raises a question that philosophers have argued about for centuries. What is the value of wisdom if it never leaves the mind? Seneca had a brutal answer. He observed that a mind that is always getting ready to live never actually lives. You are always getting ready. You are perpetually preparing. You are sharpening the blade until there is no steel left. There is a profound arrogance in modern self-awareness. We believe that if we just find the right podcast, the right quote, the right therapeutic framework, the pain will magically vanish. We treat wisdom like a cheat code to bypass human suffering. It does not exist. There is no concept that will make rejection painless. There is no psychological framework that will make discipline easy. There is no theory that will save you from the brutal friction of reality. You cannot outsmart suffering. You can only walk through it. The gap between knowing and doing is where your life is bleeding out. You are standing on the edge of the cliff. You have measured the drop. You have calculated the wind speed. You have read 3 books on the psychology of falling. None of it matters. The calculations will not save you. You still have to jump. Now, pay attention. This is the part that matters. The cure for the intellectual trap is brutal. It requires you to drop the shield of vocabulary. It requires you to stop talking about your trauma and start moving forward with the weight of it. You must systematically dismantle the archive. You must shatter the glass jars. Stop using clinical words to hide from human experiences. Stop calling it an avoidant dismissive episode. Call it what it is. You ran away. Stop calling it executive dysfunction. You chose comfort over discipline. Stop calling it an existential crisis. You are simply afraid of the future. When you strip away the academic labels, the truth is exposed, and the truth is heavy. But it is real. You have been treating your life like a math problem. But life is not a puzzle to be solved. It is an arena. Blood, sweat, and failure do not require complex psychological explanations. They only require endurance. The moment you stop trying to understand exactly why you are bleeding, you can finally start bandaging the wound. Are you terrified of the unknown? Good. It means you are finally stepping outside the archive. Do you not know what to call the emptiness you feel right now? Good. Now you can actually feel it. Let it burn through you, instead of just filing it away. Did your perfect psychological framework completely fail you today? Good. You just learned that reality does not care about your theories. The dominoes are falling. You do not need to read another book on why you procrastinate. You need to sit down and do the work. You do not need to analyze why you push people away. You need to look someone in the eye and stay. You do not need to find the root cause of your fear. You need to walk directly into the fire. The intellect will scream. It will demand to go back to the safety of the archive. It will tell you that you are not ready, that you need to do more shadow work, that you need more healing before you can take action. It will sound incredibly logical. It will sound like wisdom. It is the voice of your own cowardice, wearing the mask of self-improvement. Do not negotiate with it. Do not argue. The ancient philosophers knew that the only way to conquer the mind is to move the body. You act your way into a new way of thinking. Marcus Aurelius did not write his journal to publish a psychological theory. He wrote it to survive the brutal winter campaigns in Germania. He wrote it to survive the plague. His philosophy was a weapon, not a decoration. You forge the blade by striking the iron, not by studying the hammer. So tonight, when you lie in bed, and the clock reads 3:17 a.m., when the failure stings and the mind rushes to dissect it, when the intellect tries to drag you back into the dusty aisles of the archive to find the perfect label for your pain, stop. Let the archive burn. Do not label the pain. Do not trace it back to your childhood. Do not intellectualize it. Just feel the raw, heavy weight of it in your chest. Let it be real. And then, tomorrow morning, when the alarm rings, get up and move forward anyway. Step out into the cold, unpredictable air. You are no longer the librarian of your own suffering. You are the sovereign of your own actions. The path is open. The mountain is waiting. Walk alone, and walk like a king.